Turn around.
You're trespassing on land that doesn't belong to you anymore.
My grandfather built that dock with his own hands. So let's find out who really owns this beach.
Mr. Mercer, do you know what a colonial title grant is?
No.
Then your grandfather just shut down an entire luxury resort. 47 permits. Every single one of them is legally worthless.
2 armed security guards blocked my path to my own beach at sunrise. I had just driven 14 hours straight from Virginia after 22 years in the Navy SEALs. The last 6 months spent trying to remember what quiet felt like. My grandfather's beachfront property in coastal Georgia was supposed to be that quiet. The place where he taught me everything that mattered before the military taught me everything else. The guards crossed their arms and told me this was private resort property now. I looked past them at my grandfather's dock, the one he built in 1957 with salvaged timber and borrowed tools. His anchor was still there, hand-forged iron sitting on the dock planks, exactly where he always left it. I took a breath and drove to the county courthouse instead of through them. My name is Cole Mercer. 44 years old, I inherited my grandfather's 3-acre beachfront property 6 months after he passed and 2 months after I retired from service. He used to say the ocean teaches patience better than any drill sergeant. I was about to find out if he was right. Regina Hargrove had moved into Pelican Shore Estates 18 months earlier and appointed herself HOA president within 60 days. White Range Rover, architectural review committees for mailbox colors, a resort development deal with coastal premier properties that promised to transform the community into a luxury destination. What the deal required was my grandfather's beach access. She had filed easement claims, sent cease and desist letters, hired surveyors who produced creative measurements, and installed her security guards on my shoreline while I was still wearing a uniform overseas. The county clerk was a woman named Ruth, who had worked that office for 31 years and treated property fraud the way a surgeon treats infection. She spread my grandfather's original documents across the counter, and her reading glasses caught the morning light. "Mr. Mercer," she said, "do you know what a title grant is?" I didn't. Not yet. My grandfather's 1921 deed contained a colonial-era title grant, a legal instrument predating modern property law, granting perpetual rights to all tidal lands, submerged lands, and literal access within 600 feet of the mean high water mark. Every inch of coastline Regina's resort development touched sat inside that boundary. Her construction permits required title grant authorization from the holder of record. That holder was me. She had never contacted me. Her permits were legally void from the moment they were issued. Ruth pulled up the resort's building permits one by one and marked each one with a sticky note that said, "Insufficient title authorization." There were 47 permits, 47 sticky notes. My attorney filed the emergency injunction that afternoon. Construction stopped at 5:17 in the evening when the county sheriff's deputy arrived at the site with paperwork. Regina showed up 20 minutes later in her Range Rover and stood in the construction dust, looking at documents she clearly hadn't anticipated existed. While the injunction worked through the courts, I started digging through financial records my attorney obtained through discovery. What I found was bigger than one HOA and one resort deal. Regina's construction company had filed identical easement claims against beachfront property owners in South Carolina, Florida, North Carolina, and now Georgia. 14 properties total. Elderly owners, deployed military, estates in probate. People who were unlikely to fight back quickly or effectively. The legal fees alone were designed to exhaust them into settlement. The FBI had been building a case for 8 months. My injunction gave them the opening they needed. At the Planning Commission meeting where Regina expected final resort approval, FBI agent Torres walked through the door instead of the commissioners. "Regina Hargrove, you are under arrest for wire fraud, conspiracy to defraud property owners, and filing false easement claims across multiple federal jurisdictions. She looked at me across the room with an expression I recognized from 22 years of dealing with people who had never once been told no. I just looked back quietly. She pleaded guilty 6 months later. Federal prison, 4 years. Full restitution to every property owner she had targeted across 4 states. Her resort permits were permanently revoked. The construction was dismantled. The beach returned to what it had always been. The morning after the verdict, I walked down to the dock at sunrise. My grandfather's anchor was still there on the planks. Same place it had always been. I sat beside it for a long time, listening to the ocean and thinking about a man who hand-forged iron and built docks with borrowed tools and believed patience was the most powerful thing a person could carry. Tommy from next door came down around 7 with his fishing rod and sat beside me without saying anything. We fished until the sun was fully up. My grandfather would have liked that.